As much as I wish that was a clickbait title, unfortunately, it's the truth. My Rsv4 was totaled. I was riding to work on a day much like today, actually a little lighter traffic than today. I was actually not splitting lanes at the time of the impact. Traffic had sped up a little bit. I was back into the number 2 lane, just cruising along, and a lady in a big pickup truck in the far left lane, the number 1 lane, abruptly changed lanes when her lane slowed down, and the number 2 lane that I was in was still going at a reasonable speed. You're probably going 40 miles an hour or so. Her lane slowed down. She didn't want to be in that lane anymore, so without looking and without signaling, she just jerked the wheel to jump into the number 2 lane. And unfortunately at that time, since my lane was still moving and hers was slowing, I was moving past her passenger side door, just behind her passenger side door actually. So she hit me pretty hard. I went down, hit the road pretty good. Again, about 35, 40 miles an hour. Landed on my right shoulder. Thankfully, I was wearing good gear. Like I always, I'm what you would call a gear Nazi, I guess. I'm pretty anal about always wearing the proper equipment and wearing good quality gear. So I landed hard on the hard shoulder protector on my Dainese jacket, which I really believe saved me from worse injury. Though I still was injured. I hit the ground hard enough, I separated my AC ligament in my shoulder, and I sprained my wrist, I think is where the truck actually hit me. When her truck hit the left handlebar, of course my hand was still on it, and so that badly sprained my wrist. But other than that, I avoided more serious injury. No one ran me over. That was really good. I think somebody might have tagged the bike once it was on the ground because it had a tire mark on the nose, and most of the damage was on the right-hand side because that's the side the bike went down on. The front fairing was badly damaged, which leads me to believe that somebody might have tagged it. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I don't have video of the incident. I apparently was not smart enough to be recording every commute on the bike at that time. Now I use my little GoPro Session helmet camera, literally every commute, just in case something were to happen. Thankfully I didn't end up needing it for the police investigation or for insurance or anything, because the CHP arrived. They took a police report and found the lady in the pickup truck to be 100% at fault, making an unsafe lane change. I am still dealing with her insurance over, doctor's bills and stuff like that. But so I was off the bike for about a month, I would say. I probably got back on the bike sooner than I should have. But it took quite some time. So the first step, of course, was going to the doctor and making sure that I didn't have any worse injuries. I had cracked rib, the torn AC in my right shoulder, that left wrist sprain. And I started the process. Her insurance company was actually not being very receptive at first, so I opted to use my insurance for the bike part of the claim. The downside being I needed to pay my deductible, and I wouldn't get my $500 deductible back until my insurance gets the money back from her insurance, which it's taken months and I still haven't gotten my deductible back. But my insurance was fast to deal with everything, and it still wasn't awesome. I mean, I'm relatively happy with my insurance company, but it was still a little bit of a fight and a struggle. So I took the bike in for an estimate at the Ducati and Aprilia dealer here in San Diego. The estimate came out to about $8,000, just under $8,000. I want to say it was $7,800 or $7,900. It was perhaps a little inflated. For example, the Acura exhaust can was scratched. And this bike has a full system on it, which is MSRP something crazy. Like, I got a good deal on it, but MSRP on the full system is like $2,700. And you can get just the exhaust can separately. I want to say it's $600 or $800. Still a ridiculous amount of money for just the can itself. But in the estimate, they wrote the full $2,700. Same thing with the rear sets. I have the Giamoto rear sets, and they held up really well. One part bent on the right foot peg, like basically the foot peg carrier where it mounts to the frame. So the replacement part was literally $40. Like, that was all that needed to be replaced in the rear set. But the dealership wrote the full price, the full MSRP retail price of the rear sets. So they wrote $600 for that when it was actually a $40 repair. So little stuff like that. And of course, a couple body panels were broken. The front, the fairing stay shattered, basically. They're known to do that. They're made out of some kind of hard plastic. And, you know, they broke into a million pieces. So the first interaction with insurance, I sent them the estimate. They figured the value, I don't know where they came up with the value of the bike, but they basically figured out that, of course, it was totaled because the repair estimate was so high. I argued back and forth with them a couple times. They wanted all the aftermarket receipts because, of course, I'm a ridiculous person and this has been a bit of a project bike for me, so there's quite a bit of money wrapped up in aftermarket parts on the bike. The exhaust, the Olin suspension, the lightweight wheels, you know, random bits. That stuff all adds up. So I sent them what ended up being thousands of dollars worth of receipts. And they still came back with a pretty low value, still totaled. After a little bit more fighting with them and, you know, basically kind of escalating the issue, because they're supposedly basing the value of the bike on what other similar comparable bikes are selling for, which is an issue with the Aprilia Rsv4 because there aren't that many around. It's not a super common bike. The used market is, you know, it's pretty thin. So when I actually looked around, there were only a couple for sale within a couple 100 miles, listed online at least. And, you know, they were all asking, some of them were asking ridiculous amounts of money, but they were all significantly more than what the insurance was saying they were going to pay out. So a bit more arguing with the insurance company. Their process apparently, if you don't agree with their value, you can get 3 external appraisals. Basically, the insurance company pays for one, you pay for one, and then you both split the cost of a third, and then I guess all 3 totals are averaged together, and that's the new value. But since we were good customers, we'd never had a claim, and just kind of to do us a solid, I think the insurance company offered to just pay for one third-party unbiased appraisal. So, because it was going to cost, the process of the 3 appraisal thing was going to cost hundreds of dollars more, and it was going to add months more time. They offered to pay for an outside appraisal. So they hired a company that I believe their main thing is classic car appraisals. So the guy from that appraisal company contacted me. I sent him a bunch of pictures. I described to him, you know, how good condition the bike was in, like the aftermarket modifications that it had. He did some market research, took into account how well the bike was maintained and, you know, the quality of aftermarket parts that were on it. And he came up with a new number that was pretty close to what I was hoping for, and it was significantly more than the insurance company had come up with. So the insurance company agreed to pay that amount of money. They are still considering the bike total. So basically, they paid me out minus what it cost to buy the bike back from them, which I think was about $3,000, $3,500. I still owed a little bit of money on the bike to the bank, so a chunk of the payout went to the bank, so now the bike is free and clear. and the rest of the money went to fixing the bike, which it was pretty close. I certainly did not make out in a positive way. Granted, having the bike paid for and fixed, that's certainly an advantage, but of course now it carries a salvage title. And it really was quite a hassle, to be honest, between having to tear the bike down to repair it, which, don't get me wrong, I like working on my bike, so that really wasn't that big of a deal, but doing all the legwork to order parts, doing all the legwork with DMV, because of course, once the bike was bought back from insurance, it carried a salvaged, basically a non-usable title. So to get a repaired salvage title, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops. You have to go to a dealership to get a headlight and taillight certification done. You have to go to the DMV to request a salvage certificate, and then you have to go to DMV to have the bike inspected so they can check the VIN number and make sure it matches all the records, to make sure that you're not doing something funny with the stolen bike. And actually the biggest pain in that whole thing was they wanted to check the engine number, and the girl at DMV did not believe me that the number I was pointing out on the bike was the engine number, despite, I'd showed her in the manual, actually, in the service manual, it shows you where the engine number is located, but she was expecting like a longer number or something. I guess, motorcycles are probably different, who knows, Italian motorcycles probably do something goofy that's unlike other vehicles that she had checked before. But there was all this going back and forth where she wanted me to come back again another time, make another appointment and come back and sit around and wait again. In the end, though, she wrote down the correct number, paperwork went through, that was all good. And as you will see in this glorious B-roll, the bike is back and sexier than ever.
Please.
So that about wraps up this little update. Kind of gives you an idea of why I haven't been coming out with Rsv4 content as fast as I planned. But I'm back up and running now. I already have a couple videos in the works, so keep an eye out for those. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot.